How are y'all doing? Whew. So, if you're following this in real time, meaning on the week that I put this out, because I know some of you might be getting this in a totally different time of the year, it's July. It's quite an intense energy. If you follow even a bit of astrology, which I dip my toe into, Saturn is in retrograde, and it's like, wow, the energy feels heavy. A lot of people really exhausted, really tired. Feels like things are a bit like trudging through the mud. There's not really a flow or momentum. Um, the heat for some of us. There's a lot. There's a lot going on. And today I want to speak to a few different things. I want to speak to the current energy of the frequency of truth and authenticity, which is obviously two of my favorite things to talk about. But also this feeling, like for me personally, I've reached this kind of enoughness, like fed upness, and even though you get pushed to that point, and it's very uncomfortable to be in that place because often it's like you're at the end of your tether, at the end of your line of patience, and the fuse is very, very short. However, there's also something that's very empowering about that kind of enough is enough, that fed upness. It's kind of like coming into your power in a way where you're very clear on what the boundary is. And when you're clear on what the boundary is, it often signifies that you know where you are. You're clear with where you are, who you want to be, how you want to feel, how you want things to be laid out. And I don't say that from a place of like controlling your reality, because here I am often talking about how we're not in control, but what we're in control of is our focus, our intention, our energy, and being in aligned with our highest and greatest truth. And so ultimately, what's probably going to be at the core of this conversation today is the immense power of the energy and frequency of truth. So as always, let's dive in and see where it takes us, because it might take us in all sorts of directions. So let's dive in. This is Corinne Bloom, and you're listening to Raw Conversations. So last week I talked about allowing, how when we allow, we alleviate suffering. Because when we are trying to control, when we're resisting against, we create unnecessary suffering, right? Because we're in tension, and we're in tension often with ourselves. So this state of allowing brings us into the now moment, allows just the feeling to be a feeling and a sensation that we feel, and then we let go. We don't attach to the story of it, the narrative, the beliefs, the identities. It's literally just like feel the experience, let it move through you, let it go. And, you know, we're in the year of the snake, which is shedding old skins. And as we look to the outer world, I think people are going through their own kind of so tired about talking on the topic of healing. I think 2 weeks ago, I was talking about what if you don't need to heal? And I still stand by that, because I think we can get over fixated with the fact, or the idea, it's not a fact, the idea that we are an ongoing project that requires healing and it never ends. Whereas actually we're just being invited to come back into ourselves. But from a micro and macro perspective, it's less, you could use the word healing, but it's more actually a shedding away of everything that is not true, the untruths, and coming to that fundamental truth with a capital T. It's not truth that's like, what's my truth and your truth, and it's politically based or religiously based, or it's an opinion, right? We've wrapped up opinion and truth with a small t. But I mean the truth with a capital T, that is the truth of all that is. And it's often very simple, very clear, very direct, and it's based in authenticity. And it's not something that you can argue with, because you can feel the energy of it, and it's precision, right? It doesn't mess around. It's not flowered with all sorts of like spiritual jargon, or, whatever, like I said, political perspectives. It just is an isness. And we reach closer to that truth when we reach closer to align ourselves more to our true self, which is our soul self and our infinite, expansive, immortal self, our higher self, you could say, and to the source of all that is, whether you want to call that source, God, universe, creation, spirit, consciousness, love. You get to choose the word for it. I'm not one for labels because I think it can confine and restrict something, but whatever you resonate with, use that word. So the untruths on a micro level, on a personal level, are all of your false beliefs of who you thought you were, who you thought you should be for society. The macro truths are the, or untruths, I should say, are all the illusions of society that are finally coming to the surface, right? I have brought up the topic again with a few people that I've been speaking to this last week of Plato's allegory of the cave, because it's just such a succinct exemplification of what's happening now. So if you don't know that, if you're not familiar with it, look it up on YouTube, Plato's allegory of the cave. And essentially, in a nutshell, it's how these kind of people, slaves, are in the cave and they are staring at the cave wall, and the controllers, you could say, are projecting these images onto the cave wall. And that's what all the people are fixated on, not realizing that they're shackled. They're literally shackled, and they're believing all of these images as that's reality, that's truth. And then you have a branch of people that leave the cave and they come out to the world, and it's beautiful and bright, and there's sun and trees and birds and animals. And they're like, oh, this is the real reality. And then, of course, their mission is to go back into the cave and to say, this isn't true. This isn't reality. Come up here. There's a big, beautiful world up there. And, that's not a very easy feat, but I use that. I think it's a perfect example of what's going on right now. We've been shackled in the cave, believing that the illusions that are projected onto the wall are real. And it's harsh. It's harsh if you're having a spiritual awakening in these times, because you're like, shit, the reality that I've believed in and that I've known for X amount of years is not true. Right? And it can feel confronting because you're being asked to shed a skin that you've been so identified with, not only within yourself, but the world. It's like the Truman Show when he peels back I don't know if actually he peels back the sky. I think he does, right? He comes to like this, or he comes to the staircase at the end of the horizon where it meets the sky, and he opens the door, It's that. It's that. And, for some people that might be a scary concept, but ultimately it's hugely liberating, because we are so much bigger than who we believed ourselves to be, and life is so much more possible and expansive than this tiny little cage that we've been taught to live in, and kept within for a very, very, very long time. So this energy of truth, I love how synchronicity works like this. I don't often look for things, but things pop up, and I know that I'm meant to hear it, right? So there was a wonderful 19-minute video that I actually posted on my Facebook, so you can go there to see it. Carl Cease talking about a bit what we're going through right now. And he inspired this conversation today around truth, the greater truth. And what he says is that we're letting go of the small self. The small self that wants to hold on to the story, that wants to hold on to the drama, that wants to hold on to the sides. So he brought up something that was political, which is always, a bit touchy. But what was beautiful, and I resonated with this 1,000,000%, is that when how would I put this into my own words? When your frequency comes up to a level that is founded upon the foundation of that truth with a capital T, you will not put up with anything less than that. You will not put up with the untruths. And that goes for micro and macro, personal and collective. You won't put up with your own bullshit. You'll be kind and compassionate, but you'll be like, that's a false story of myself. That's a false belief. No, I don't want to be the victim anymore. Like, I call bullshit on that. I know that there's more to this, and that's not true. So I'm not going to live in an untruth, and I'm not going to be satisfied or okay with anything that is but that truth with a capital T. I'm not going to be okay with the lies. It's kind of like when someone in a, let's call it an abusive relationship, or just like a toxic relationship, let's say, just all of a sudden gets to that place of enoughness and says, not going to do it anymore. Basta. I'm fed up with this. I'm not going to deal. I'm not putting up with your lies anymore. I'm not putting up with your manipulation anymore. So one of the things that he was talking about is that, we've been conditioned to take sides, and for it to, this is a tactic, right, for us to fight against each other, whether again it's political or religious or racial or whatever. There's always been, you got to pick a side and you're fighting against each other. And where humanity is coming to, as he explains, as Kyle Cease explains, that the frequency is getting so high that it's no longer about sides. It's actually whether it's true or untrue. And so now the beautiful thing that's happening is that the collective energy is coming up to this place that it's like now everyone is looking at the same thing from the same lens. It's no longer sides. They're no longer fighting each other. And they're going, I call bullshit on that. You just blatantly lied and we're not standing for it, and we're not going to play the game anymore. And one thing that he said that I thought was so brilliant is that we've been in a phase where people that have spoken truth have been canceled. And now he said the tables are going to turn and the people that are speaking lies are going to be shut down, because we're just not going to buy it anymore. Again, like take the micro. If you're in a relationship and you finally recognize this person is up to no good, and even you could say this character, you might think, oh, that relationship is going to be better, that relationship is going to be, but you keep on attracting the same characters and you realize they're all the same characters, right? So if you want to go political, they're all part of the same team. They're all in the same paradigm. It's all the same thing with a different facade to trick you into thinking it's different, but it's all the same. And the moment you say no to a pattern, and you go, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not going to attract that kind of, not attract, I don't like that word anymore. I'm not going to choose, whether conscious or unconscious, I'm not going to choose that relationship anymore. I'm not going to choose that paradigm anymore, that dynamic anymore. Why? Because I've changed. Because I'm not living from a part of me that believes falsely that I'm not whole, that I'm not good enough, that I'm not worthy, that I'm not lovable, that I'm not significant. That is the untruths that we've believed to be truth, but it's not, right? And so this is the crumbling of the illusion. So he says that, finally the people coming together, that it's no longer about the little detail of it. It's like you said, the small self that's really concerned with the drama and what's the story. And there will be another story and another story and another drama and another drama. And it's all to hook you into that state of division. Where actually, when we rise high above that, it's either truth or it's not truth. And if it's not truth, it's like, nope, not interested anymore. Not interested anymore. So this place of enoughness can be very empowering. It's like, I'm not playing this bullshit game anymore. And you don't have control over me. I'm a sovereign being. Again, I will always relate macro, micro, collective, personal. So the same thing goes with your relationship to yourself. It also goes to along with your relationship to your higher self. So a personal example of that is, for those of you that have followed my story, which I don't even share about it anymore because it feels like it's getting so incredibly boring. I started off, December 2023 on this adventure and, going to Mexico with my daughter and seeing if that was a potential home, and then kind of being, 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing, having to go back to where I lived. And that was hugely depressing. And then trying to figure out where I'm going. And I kept on, it was like the Celestine prophecy of just following the serendipities, the synchronicities and serendipities, and ended up falling into the place that I am now. But over a year now, and I still have not been able to find our long-term housing because there's a housing crisis. Prices are through the roof and they're just insane. So anyway, here I am more than a year and a half later, and we still don't have a home. We're still moving around sometimes every month, and it's exhausting. And so last night I couldn't go to sleep because there's a restaurant across the street from my bedroom. And that was already kind of fucking me off, to be honest, because I'm just so tired of the noise. And I came out onto the balcony and I looked at the sky. And this was my second conversation of the night, because I'd had this conversation also before I went to bed. And this conversation both with my higher self. First, it was with my higher self, and then to kind of God, universe, source. But I had this, this enough moment. And even though I'm like, I love you, soul, but right now you're a fucking bitch. I'm like, this is not good enough. This is not acceptable. This is not okay in any shape or form. Enough. Enough of this. If I'm the car and you're the driver, drive me better. Drive me better, because I'm not doing this anymore. And, yes, in this realm, we have judgment, and we have to learn to move beyond judgment, to return back to our natural state, into our inner home. And so I know that my soul is looking down, being like, oh, my poor little human right now is struggling. And I don't mean that in a patronizing way, like in an endearing way, but also the human in me that has free will gets to say, enough. I know my guides and my angels on the other side of the veil are, it's all hunky dory over there because it's light and love and shit, right? It's all nice. And I'm like, you come down here next time. It's hard. It's hard here. And so the free will part of me that kind of comes out as like this mama lion that snarls and kind of swipes at the cub when it's like, enough. I'm not playing this game anymore. But it's not out of aggression. It's not even an angry place. It's this place that's just, this is my boundary. I know what I'm willing to put up with and what I'm not willing to put up with. I'm very clear with what I need. And this is not in alignment with that. So basta. Finito. Enough. Like, no more of this. I've learned as much as I can learn, and I'm not evolving anymore. I'm stagnating. And the moments in my life where I've been here before, where I reach that enoughness, there's something that is truly empowering about that. And I think there's no separation between what's happening personally and collectively, right? So people might be experiencing this in their personal life. Relationships might be coming to an end. Jobs might be coming to an end. Places where you live might be coming to an end, because there's a part of you that says, enough of this old pattern. If I'm not growing, if this doesn't have meaning for me, if this doesn't help to evolve me, and it's keeping me in my small self, as Kyle Cease said, enough. It either needs to evolve, and there needs to be energy and movement in what I'm experiencing, or somehow I need to close, like that, tie that knot, close that chapter, and move on to something else. And I think, even though I truly believe that our soul is driving us, as a human, we do have something called free will. And our free will is how we respond to what arises in our life. I might not be able to drive where I'm going, but I can certainly influence the steering in a way that is like, my soul needs to respect what my human self is experiencing right now. And I know that God, source, universe, creation, spirit only hands us as much as we can handle. It's so annoying to hear that, isn't it? Especially when you're going through really hard times and you're like, I can't take anymore. I can't take anymore. And I also think we have that free will to be in communication with our higher self to say, enough of this. Now, we have to be willing. I love this analogy that I've used for years and years and years. And I was talking about this with a friend of mine the other week. So, when you have two windows and one is open and one is closed, and the bee is on the closed window, like trying to like go up and up the window, trying to get out. And it's like, it's just like stubborn, bumping its head against the window. And you're like, dude, if you just looked a little bit to your left, there's an open window there and you're free out into the big wide world, right? But it's like stubborn and like, no, I must go in this direction. This seems to be the direction. I can see it, but there's this invisible wall, right? So where we have to be willing and allowing is, if you're bumping your head on the wall, are you willing to metaphorically and sometimes literally, like as far as whatever your perspective and point of view is, to shift your perspective and your line of sight, I should say? Are you willing to look in a different direction? Are you willing to be open to looking in a different direction? Are you willing to do it differently and hopefully to be guided into that? Now, as we step more into the frequency of truth, I think that actually we open ourselves up to receiving more clearly the guidance that actually is there, because we're not trying to fight against it or kind of trick ourselves against it. You know, it's very easy to live in illusion, to live in lies. You might be in a relationship where you're like, man, I've been lying to myself this whole time, believing that I'm happy in this situation and I can make it work, but I'm not. I'm not living authentically. Or it could be the same for a job or with a friendship or whatever it is. So I think this energy of truth for me is interwoven with authenticity. And people will often say, I've heard this said a lot, that authenticity actually holds a higher frequency than love. Now, Kyle Cease talked about this as well, but I think the way that I would speak to this is like, just like I said, there's truth with a small t and truth with a capital T. I also think that there's love with a small L and love with a big L. I think ultimately we are love with a capital L, and that is the highest frequency. But what makes it even more potent is understanding that love is interwoven with authenticity and truth, that those three frequencies together make up who we are. Because love with a smaller L, as Kyle Cease was talking about love, he was saying truth is a greater frequency than love, because love we've associated with kindness. Oh, I'm loving and I'm in love if it's love and light, and I'm kind and I'm. But actually, you know what? Love can be fierce. Love can say, nope, nope, that's my boundary. You know, the mama lion that protects her cubs, that's love, but she is fierce, right? I remember the story of Amma, the hugging, the Indian woman that's the hugging, what do they call her? I think if you're in this circle, you'll understand. But they said, you know, here's this woman that is so loving and she spends hours giving hugs to people. But if her village is under threat, she will come up like a force of nature, and you don't fuck with her. You don't mess with her. Right. So being in a state of love, it's not about being violent and aggressive and mean and catty and petty, all of that stuff. It's that love that says, I know where that line of enough is. I know where that boundary is. And I do it with integrity, right? I do it with respect for that which I'm protecting. And I'm calling out the bullshit. I'm calling out all the untruths, because the true North Star is that love that is interwoven with truth and authenticity. And anything that kind of is a peel off of that and it's less than that, I don't like to say better or worse or, you know, less or more, but just for lack of a better term, anything that falls short of that because it's inauthentic, or it's a straight out lie, or it's a, you know, oh, I'm being nice, so that means I'm being loving. No. Being nice doesn't equate love. Anything that falls short of that just fundamental truth of who we are doesn't get past us anymore. And that's what this evolution is. That's what this ascension is. It's coming into that place of truth where it's just the knowing, it's the gnosis, not the knowledge from the brain, but the knowing from the heart, the gnosis, right? That inner wisdom that knows from all of the coding that you have from lifetime and lifetime and lifetime and lifetime and beyond this lifetime, your soul encoding, right? The encoding of creation itself. That's the true library of whatever data you want to tap into, right? The real knowing and knowledge and gnosis and real wisdom. And so, you know, the shedding of the skin is shedding all parts of you that are so much smaller than that we've outgrown. And what comes with that is all the bullshit stories that, you know, held us in a trance, in a state of hypnosis, and kept us small. And so the real revolution is not anarchy. It's not violence. I'm not interested in that anymore. If it doesn't reflect truth with a capital T and L with a capital love with a capital L, I'm not interested. If it's not authentic and genuine and coming from heart, I'm not interested. Do your thing, but I'm not interested. Right? That's true power. And power isn't greed. Power isn't control. Power is the isness, the I am of the soul and of source. That's just here in the now. That's just right here. Nothing that you need to control in the future, because there really is no future. There's just another now. So breathe that in and breathe it out. The invitation is, what can you just let go of that is too small for you now? It's like letting go of the clothes that no longer fit you, right? Like, give them away, let them go, right? We're outgrowing the identities, the belief systems, the lies, the illusions, the systems, the paradigms, the dogmas. We're outgrowing everything that is the shadows that are being projected on the wall, that are literally that, shadows projected on the wall. They're false. And as a dear friend of mine has been saying, she really feels like the evolution is when we put down the screens and you go out and you look at a tree. I'm looking at a beautiful tree right now. And you go, wow, I can see the tree moving. I can see the tree breathing. I can see the divine in it. Like, my favorite time of day is sunset. And the beautiful golden and pink lights that get, light that gets shed on the greens and the grays and the browns and the blues, and the everything becomes like this magic hour where it starts to just become more still. And it's just the truth of that moment. And it's so exquisitely beautiful, because it's not filled with, what are we going to do today? And we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And, it's the doing. It's actually just, no, everything is about to go to sleep. And so it gets real simple. And in its simplicity, it becomes so alive, because all of a sudden you see so much of what is. You notice so much of what is, because you're not busy doing. And one of the things that Kyle C said is, the truth that we're in with a small t, and that false identity, the limited small self, thought that life was about what you did and what you achieved. If you've been following me, I've talked about this for years now. It's not what, you're not here to achieve things anymore. It's not about what you do. It's not about how much money you make. It's not about how much you own. It's, how are you being? What are you embodying? Are you embodying that truth, authenticity, and love? That's your mission. Your mission is to be real. Your mission is to be who you truly are. Your mission is to return to the source of who you truly are and be in alignment with that. To be that love, because you are that love. So, we've been so fixated on the little self that is like, oh, I have to do this and I have to get this accolade and I have to make this amount of money and I have to have this home and this car and this. It doesn't mean anything anymore. And you all know it, because since 2020, that's become really, really apparent and very true. Like, if there's one thing that I observed after the first lockdown, it was, what has meaning to me? A lot of people started questioning. They didn't want to be in the rat race anymore. They didn't want to be in the mediocre relationship that wasn't evolving. The fallacy and the illusion of life just felt like it's not good enough. And what I mean by not good enough is just, it's too tiny, The shoes don't fit anymore. So the invitation is, look at what parts of you, your life, and the collective that you recognize that are keeping you in your small self. What skins can you shed? And what does the truth with a capital T look like and mean for you? And can you feel that? Can you feel that it's about the collective coming together and simply, calmly, peacefully saying, nope, not buying the bullshit anymore. So look through that lens of truth with a capital T, both in the outer world, but also with yourself. Don't reprimand yourself. Don't berate yourself. Don't judge yourself. But it's like, what parts of you are you like, no, I'm not going to entertain that anymore because I know that I'm so much bigger than that. And maybe you need some guidance with that process. But also there is so much to just be with yourself. Take time in the morning and in the evening, especially, to sit with your eyes closed and feel. Feel. And you don't need to analyze, you don't need to process, and you don't need to go into the whole story. Feel it, allow it, breathe through it, let it come up and out. That's what we're moving through right now. Feel the discomfort. It's going to be fucking uncomfortable sometimes. That's okay. Stay with it. Again, we've been in a society that's like, numb it, distract from it, run away from it, avoid it. No. Feel it, allow it, release it. Yeah. We are all together coming up into a higher frequency that is going to have very different measures of what is okay and what is not okay, not from a place of judgment, but from that place of isness that says this is either truth or it's not truth, with a capital T. So I think that's good. I think that's good. I'm going to leave it at that. Just observe that the small self will want to maybe go into judgment, will maybe want to go into righteousness. Oh, Corinne said this and I don't agree with that. No, that person said this or this belief and they're still right. And if you're still in that state of division, you're coming from the small self. No judgment doesn't make you inferior. It's not about any of that. It's about really being honest with yourself. Do you call bullshit in the most loving, fierce way, right? Love will say, I call bullshit on that. I'm not going to collude with you in that anymore. Like my closest girlfriends, soul sisters, we are like that. We trust each other so much that we can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to call you up on that because it's from a place of love. I'm not going to let I'm not going to let you make yourself small anymore. I'm not going to collude in that pattern of thinking that makes you a victim. No, I'm here. I love you. I'm not going to let you be small anymore. So can we do that for one another? But we have to start with, can we do that for ourselves? Because you deserve to be free. You deserve to be who you truly are. And we deserve to fly out of the cage. We don't need to be in the cage with clipped wings anymore. We get to fly and be free. But that's up to us. There's no savior. There's no authority that's going to do it for us. You're seeing the illusion. You're seeing the bullshit. It's fucking fantastic. Welcome to freedom, my friends. And ultimately then it's about coming from that place of source love, that it's like, we're all playing a character in this game. And so even the quote unquote evil ones, the bad guys, they're playing a very important part in our remembering, the remembrance of who we truly are and what this is all about. So go with it, not against it. Go with it. How is life happening for me and not to me? But know your boundaries. Call bullshit where it needs to be called out. Yeah? Okay, I've said enough. As always, take it or leave it as feels right for you, and loving you from afar. Thanks for being here with me. Bye. You've been listening to Raw Conversations with Corinne Bloom. Thanks so much for showing up, listening in, and being a part of the conversation with me.